recording in progress.
Dave, beautiful.
Yeah.
It was the magic.
Keeper.
It was the
Nice.
magic of like yesteryear. You did a great job.
And it's Karen Lamb pushing the button.
Yeah, we went back to the original orientation.
She's a reluctant but essential piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, Karen hates the game, but
Yeah.
indulges us, and in fact makes it a better game. So thanks, Karen.
You're so welcome. All right, so we're continuing with our November special of things that
childhood horror.
Yeah, childhood horror. Thanks to Helen's suggestions. So, you know, we followed, Sophie started with Mr. Boogedy.
We've had The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah. Last week we had The Flight of Dragons, my lovely obscure 80s film. And now, Helen, what was your choice for the thing that scared you as a child?
Well, I chose The Exorcist. And,
of course.
And I didn't actually see it as a child because it didn't come out till I was about 19.
I thought you worked out that you may be 17. That's it.
Something like that.
You got to shut it down.
Close. I was close.
Yeah. So this is childish rather than child.
However, it's because I don't recall ever seeing anything that scared me as a child. So I had this very closeted childhood, I think.
I thought it was closeted, or you just like hard as balls, right? So you just like,
that's right.
None of this. No worries.
I did see The Wizard of Oz as a child, and it didn't worry me, I have to say.
Dave saw it when he was very young, though. Dave was too young to have seen it.
I was about like 7 or 8.
Can one be too young to see The Wizard of Oz?
Not
in our family.
Yeah, I don't know, but talking strawmen is a bit spooky.
I think it's all related to the Wicked Witch of the West and her weird little monkey piece.
Yeah, the monkey and the Cossack soldier is quite scary.
Yeah, they're a bit.
Also, like, I think it's interesting with you two and your scary stuff, because it's like, you had to be younger than 7 because you watched Aliens at 7, and you watched Psycho or something at 8 or 9. Is that not what we established, Sophie? So like both of you had to go super young. Whereas like I picked something that scared me when I was like 7 or 8, and the pair of them were like, "What scares you about this?" Like, I don't understand.
I'm gonna be honest, like
normal childhood. Normal childhood it scared me.
7 or 8, but I believe the flight. We established like we're now backtracking, but yeah, the Flight of Dragons. There were some things I was like that would be troubling, but not necessarily like scary. Like when the fairies and the swan died and then they all came back to life in like the first 20 seconds of the movie. Like a bit like, but then they were fine. So I'd be like,
But look, I see where you're coming from, Helen, though, because actually, so The Exorcist is one that I think my mum saw at the cinema and had to walk out during. And ultimately, it's one of these ones where even when I said we were watching it this week for doing this, my mum properly shuddered. And she has such a visceral reaction. I don't know if she's ever actually seen it all the way through. And she's like, no, why would anyone watch this? So like, I think it's
Smith agrees.
Yeah.
Like, fuck that movie. I don't want to play this game.
It's Cujo in the passage.
So I guess my first question, Helen, if it scared you so much when you saw it before, how did you manage watching it this time? How was it for you?
It was actually perfectly fine.
Oh my goodness. This is not the response I would have anticipated.
It actually did not scare me at all. I don't know whether, because I saw it, when I saw it the first time, it was at the movies, and it had a lot of hype around, the advertising, and it was very popular and all the rest of it.
It still does, because we were having this conversation where everyone's like, The Exorcist is one of the scariest horror movies ever. And I like very much disagree. Like, I think it's great.
Yeah.
I don't think there's that much that's particularly like scary. It's disturbing.
Yeah.
Like, I think with you, Mum, because I just think that you find things scary that I wouldn't. So I thought maybe there was something in there for you.
No, I think the thing is it's extremely scary the first time you see it, but because you know what to expect, I think that's what changes it. And you're looking at it on a much smaller screen compared to a cinema, and you're not in the pitch black, and you haven't had all this hype around it, and you've seen those images for decades because it gets dragged out and parodied and all those things.
And also, although the story's still interesting, I mean, you sit there for 2 hours and you still watch the whole thing and you're drawn by the whole lot. The bar's been lifted in terms of things that scare you in horror and CGI and all sorts of stuff. And I guess we'll get to discussing some of the effects later. But it's still innovative for the time, I guess, scary for the time. The religious aspects of it and all that sort of stuff is still interesting, I think. So the story is interesting. But in terms of the impact of the effects and things, I think it's just time. I think time's taken its toll in terms of what we see now and the contrast probably.
And I think too the idea of like you're saying about the hype behind the cinemas, they're saying when it was released, people were queuing right the way out the door, and they were like, this is never going to make the money back. It's a horror film that doesn't have any top cast. No one knows who's in this. It was double what they budgeted for it. And then people were just interested in the story. I think the book was really popular. And so suddenly, I think I get that mass crowd stuff. And I've heard, Helen, that you are somewhat of a reactor in horror films. So I would imagine if I was sitting with you and something had all this hype and you were jumping, I'd be right there with you. So I could see even that about it too. Preparing yourself that you're going to be so scared. It's even, I guess, for us with the Blair Witch Project, which I don't know, did you see it at the movies, Sophie? So I saw it at the cinema, and again, it wasn't, I would watch it now and go, why did that bother me? But everyone going to see that with the first time doing that handheld, like nothing really happens in that film, but you're still like, because everyone around you is
Whereas I think, I didn't see it at the cinema, and then because there was so much hype, and then of course, and like as Mum suggested, like it's, if you're seeing it on a smaller screen, not on the big screen, whatever, I found the Blair Witch Project so boring. It's one of the most boring movies. I was like, what is and then it ended, and I was like, what? And then I think it would have been different, like if I'd seen, because I do remember seeing The Sixth Sense. Mom, Dad, I'm pretty sure we went with Simone and Ian and maybe someone else. And that was, I think I just started high school. I think I was 13, or I was at the end of primary school, so I was 12. And I remember being scared shitless. And it was mainly like, there was a couple of, and I think we've talked about it before, like there's a couple of scenes, but there's the one with like Misha Barton, who's like the girl who's being poisoned by the stepmom, and then he goes into the bedroom and like something grabs his leg and he falls to the ground, and then there's this shot of just like skinny, creepy ghost Misha Barton with like the staring eyes just like pushing a button. And there are a few things that I remember like that genuinely scaring the shit out of me, whereas it's like, if I, even at the same age, if I think I'd seen that at like the movies, at home without someone saying like, this is a very scary movie, it probably wouldn't have affected me more. But like, I still say it was quite irresponsible for you having taken me. I'm pretty sure it's like,
well, you shouldn't have been so mature for your age.
M15 plus or something, and I was about 12, and I just remember being like, oh my God, ghosts are everywhere.
But it's an interesting comment about the crowd. But comedy's the same, isn't it, really? If you go to a show where there's a number of people around, the laughter becomes a bit more ineffective. If on your own and the jokes are lame, unless you've had a copious amount of wine, you're unlikely to laugh, really.
But I even had that with, I think it was one of the Harry Potter movies, and I saw it twice at the cinema, and I saw it once with an audience that were like, because there's like little funny bits here and there, and there were a couple of people that were pissing themselves at those little funny bits. So yeah, the rest of so it was like this really like funny, enjoyable experience. And then I saw it again in a different cinema with different people, and it was like, this is Harry Potter and there's wizards in it. Like it was a completely different, and it was just because of the two people having like the time of their life at these little lame jokes. And then first you start kind of laughing at their laughing, but then you're laughing at their laughing and the thing that they're laughing at. And then, yeah, I agree completely. So, watching The Exorcist all by myself in here, it was the same as I remember it was last time, which was excellent, but not particularly scary. But anyway, shall we do our thing?
But yes. So Helen, JP, you saw it at the cinema. Did you see it at the cinema? Did you see it?
Way back, yeah. And to be honest, there were bits that I remembered and other bits that I'd obviously forgotten through the passage of time sort of thing, really. Still found it quite interesting, though. As I said, it's a 2 hour and whatever, 8-minute film or whatever. And other than toilet breaks, didn't need to go away from the screen at all, really. It was actually quite good. So the story was still engaging the whole time, and I thought that the characters were still strong and interesting and all that sort of stuff. So that hadn't suffered for me over time at all. But as I said, probably in terms of horror, in terms of those sorts of impacts, they're probably a little different now.
And before we get started on actually talking about the film as it goes, but did you all watch the director's cut or the theatrical?
Yeah, apparently there are different ones. Do you guys watch it on Netflix, or did you watch like a version that you'd acquired in some?
Yeah, we watched it.
No, we watched Netflix.
Yeah, we didn't watch.
Okay, that's good.
Okay.
We all, because last time I watched, because I actually have I bought a DVD and I had a ripped version, and I watched that last time. And
Yeah,
then
we watched the director's cut last time, Sophie. So I think
Yeah.
when we watched this last year and chatted about it, it
Yeah.
was the even longer version.
Yeah,
Oh,
and then this time I was like, oh, it's on Netflix, easy. And then so that's good. We all watched the Netflix version, which means we all watched the same one. That's good.
Yeah.
But what I quite enjoyed, so it starts, but we start the film in northern Iraq. And again, I was expecting this. So this is only the second time I think you've seen this. And again, Dave was like, what is this film? Because he didn't remember it starting the way it starts.
Actually, yeah, me too. Absolutely. I'd forgotten that completely.
So we start in northern Iraq with a dig, with the priest that is the exorcist priest, or becomes the exorcist priest.
Okay.
Finding weird stuff and getting creeped out for quite a long time.
Yeah.
In a way that you sit there going, huh? For quite a while.
Yeah, and did you think to this?
Somehow?
Sorry, Sophie.
No, I was gonna say, yeah, like you're sitting there for long enough being like, I thought we're watching The Exorcist. We're still in Iraq. Like, what is happening here? Like it, yeah.
And did you think there were just a lot of people just aimlessly digging without purpose?
I did.
Yeah, I did. I
Like,
believe
They were just.
don't you need to be like careful?
Yeah, scratching up all the artifacts. You know.
That's right. They were digging walls, digging holes, and there were just people everywhere. What seemed to be without any sort of pattern or purpose, and they were just quietly all digging and making a lot of dust.
It's those more people turned up than they were expecting, and like they just kept coming. They were like, "All right,
Oh, you dig there. You dig there.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so like, I mean, you can all correct me if I'm wrong, because this bit just kind of washed over me. But like, so the key elements from the opening that goes on for quite a while is like he finds a kind of rock demon-y thing. He finds a medallion.
Yeah.
And he sees
this kind of evil-looking statue, and he kind of stands toe-to-toe with it in a suggestive and foreshadowy way.
Yeah. And there's like a dogs fighting. Like there's some really good imagery at the start. So things as well, like when he's having a meeting with some dude and a clock stops, and that kind of freaks you out. You're like, I don't really know what's going on. There's the bit with him looking at the big stone demon depiction, and the dogs fighting, and
so it's kind of like, so they're doing the digging. It's like, we found a thing, shows him a little thing, is like, okay, looks like he's freaking out a bit. He's then at a place drinking tea, and he obviously has like a medical condition. He takes his pill and drinks the tea, and it's fine. And then he's like in the room with the guy, and they're talking about stuff, and it's like, oh, like, I'm sad that you're going. And it's like, I've got stuff to do. And then the clock stops and whatever. And then he leaves, and then he's like walked out, and then he's like standing on a thing, and he sees a guy, and it's a bit like, what? And then he turns around, and he's like, yeah, face to face with the demon as the dogs. It was just like,
it's all like premonitions, isn't it, about stuff?
Yeah.
And then we cut to not Iraq, and we don't talk about that stuff that really happened.
No, so it's like we start the film with a lot of feeling disorientated, and then we don't see that dude for a really long time, and so you're like, so I think when we saw it last year, after I hadn't seen it for years, I actually always think the film starts with Chris and Regan. Like I always think it starts with the actress and her daughter, and I'm like, oh no, there's this whole preamble.
Yeah.
So then we move on to, I don't think we really know what the difference in time is between it all, but we're now suddenly in the States.
I think it's supposed to be contemporary because we see Father Marin taking the same medication and suffering to the same degree.
Yeah, but not till quite later on. So we're thrown into the Iraq thing, and then we're thrown into the States, and we're like, here we are.
It's almost suggestive. It's sort of like the past, whatever the past is.
Yeah. That's kind of how I felt watching it. And so we're now.
I think it's happening at the same time, because in my head it's like, they've dug something up, they unleashed like an evil. And then for some reason it's in New York. No, where are they?
Right.
Washington.
That's
Although,
right.
Sophie, it's filmed a lot in New York, so but it's supposed to be Washington.
Yeah, and also his mother was in Brooklyn, wasn't she?
You were right, isn't it? Yeah, that's right. No, but yeah, no, I always saw it as happening as like a similar time. Like that's happening there. They're digging stuff up, and now like cut to like a different place in the world. And that's, but I don't know. They don't tell us. Maybe it's none of our business,
Yeah.
That's probably why they have little subtitles for some films saying, before or, the year or this year or, later in New York sort of thing.
Yeah. So we now have a mother, an actress, so a woman sort of in reading.
Mother and actress portraying an actress.
Portraying an actress.
Yeah.
Easiest gig ever.
Right?
And so
no, she's portraying a successful actress, which is not something. It's quite difficult.
Yeah, that's the tricky part. Yeah. Luckily, she became one, so she'll be better at it next.
Yeah, that's right.
Not known.
So do we start with her reading our script, or is it we start with her on the film set? I can't recall, but
no, she's reading a script because she's reading something and she hears stuff at night time, and then
yeah, this is what scares me. This is, if you're going to ask what scares me in Exorcist, it's the scratching in the attic.
Yeah.
Always what scares
But then
me.
she goes up there. Like, who would do that? If they're a sane person, I wouldn't go.
Yeah. That late, she doesn't go the
That's
first
later.
time,
So the first time she hears the scratching, and then we get to see that this woman's she seems quite important without us really knowing what she does, because she's got someone cooking her breakfast. She looks in on her daughter.
Yeah, true.
She then goes downstairs. She's got a butler. She's got someone cooking her breakfast, and she's just sort of swanning about.
And she's like, the rats in the attic, and he's like, no rats, and she's like, there are rats in the attic, and he's like, no, there are no rats, and she's like, there are rats in the attic.
Yeah, and don't you think by the sounds incongruous in terms of rat noises for me? Like it was, scratch, thump, thump, and then there must have been pretty big rats to make those thumping sounds. But
possums, maybe they got
it's a bit disjointed. Yeah, it was possums. That's true.
Possums? Are they the American possums?
You do get possum, but I don't think you'd find them in your attic. I think that's quite
Dave keeps coming, and every time we say something wrong about the US, Dave.
That's even so then she goes onto her film set and has a wee acty scene, which doesn't really move anything forward much, apart from we do see the
the priest.
We see the priest.
Because the other day I met up with my friend Jake, and he was staying with his friend Dimmy, and every time he said Dimmy, I was like, Dimmy, and he was like, what? And I was like, you haven't seen The Exorcist? And then I didn't say it to Dimmy, I only said it to Jake, but every time Jake said Dimmy, I just couldn't help it. I went, Dimmy. Anyway, so the priest's name is
Why
Dimmy.
you do this to me?
Yeah, Dimmy, why you do this to me, Dimmy? And Jake's like, what are you doing? Oh, anyway, sorry. Yeah, we see the priest.
So yeah, we're just the priest, and we see her acting, and she's like a big deal, clearly.
Yeah, she's like
some kind of big deal.
Yeah, she's got her own trailer. She's got a little like makeup collar, trailer. She's like questioning what someone's motivation is in the script. Why are they knocking the building down? We've got like the priest Dimmy watching in like the crowd. He's loving it. He's loving everything that's happening. He's a big fan. And then he walks away.
That's right.
And then she walks back home after the shoot, and she sees the priest. So where she's staying is quite near. Yes.
Sorry, I'm gonna stop. I promise I'll stop.
No, I'm enjoying it. Just keep going. And then there's the lovely scene her chatting to her daughter. Yeah. So I really love the rapport between the mother and daughter. I just think it's just so natural and so great.
Well, that's interesting actually, because I thought that Reagan, the daughter, was almost too sweet for words.
It was funny. Like I would say, like it was because she's meant to be 12, right? And I was just like watching this, and I was like, you can still. Yeah, I found her. I thought she was great in it. But on like watching it again, like in such quick succession, I was like, she's a bit unbearable. Like I found her.
I'm sorry, but see, as someone that was an incredibly sweet 12-year-old, I just thought it was very well done.
But also I remember like when it's in the 70s.
Yeah, it's true. It's very brave.
12-year-olds were probably less sophisticated than now, and
they're all slappers now. Have you seen 12?
No. So I feel like
with their little.
She's an only child, privileged background. I don't know.
Well,
I thought she was fine.
No, that's true. But you certainly, and it's interesting because later when things go belly up, having the contrast is actually really quite interesting. Yeah. Such a sweet girl, sugary sweet girl becomes.
Boy, she had a mouth.
That's right. It becomes this monster. So that contrast is quite interesting.
And I quite like it too, because you could imagine that with her mother being so a renowned actress that's really into her craft and whatnot, and also that with the chef or the butler and someone helping look after her daughter, that she might have quite a distant relationship from her. But it was really important early on to set up just how much she cared for her daughter, how much they got on, so that you could see why her mum was going over and above. And again, in those early scenes, it's just so important building that close relationship. And then seeing, as you say, the daughter becoming less sweet, but the mother also like losing it because what on earth was going on. So
you're right. It's almost like scene setting early, isn't it?
I mean, no, I agree. Yeah. So anyway, like I like Reagan, but I just sometimes she's just a bit much.
I really like Reagan. Like, I can relate to
her. I mean, you know, she's not unlikable, but she could. I reckon she'd be unbearable in a long stretch.
I don't reckon I was that sweet. Maybe that was the problem.
You're a little sassy 12-year-old.
That's right. I can't remember you smiling like that.
A little sassy.
Sassy.
I like sassy as well.
Okay.
And so we continue, I think, with the scratchy noises. And this must be, is this when she goes into the loft to look, the mother?
Yeah, maybe it's then.
It must be then, because she's, oh no, isn't it later?
I feel like we've had some Father Karras stuff by this point. So we've seen Father Karras go to visit his mum.
Yes, that's right. I think that's right, actually, because there's a lot of stuff that happens really before it comes to a bit of a crescendo with the age.
I remember we commented last time where it's really interesting because a lot of the more modern horror movies, it's just like 20 seconds in and something fucked happens, whereas this, it's just like they are just setting the scene for basically an almost like a whole movie's worth of setting the scene. Movie, which is the fucked bit.
That's also why I like it so much. I remember when we watched it last year, so Sophie and I had started wanting to chat about horror for Horror Film Club, and Dave was just sitting with me sometimes, and I'd put on The Exorcist. And you got caught up in it because you were like, this is not what I thought this was. And you were quite, again, the character development, the different relationship between the priest and his mum, and his feeling like he's losing his faith and feeling a bit torn because he's a priest psychiatrist. And he's a bit lost.
Combo.
Because he became a priest first and then they put him through... then he became a psychiatrist and he went to all fancy schools and stuff.
Georgetown. He had his Georgetown wind cheater on. 2 different ones.
You're right.
Oh, Helen.
But
proud of his alma mater.
But it was interesting that the pre-psychiatry thing, because, you know, one's, what should we call it? Faith, and the other one's sort of sciencey. So
I really wanted.
It seems like an interesting combination.
I thought we could use your history involved in the Catholic faith. I wanted you to bring your opinion.
That's right, because you know, they're both about sort of healing, but you know, the flavour's sort of a bit different.
One of them's evidence-based,
and the other one's historically based. Yeah. That's right.
Fixed it. That's fine.
But I think that's also important and a really nice combination, because sort of jumping ahead when we do get to maybe we need an exorcism, it's actually the medics that propose it's required. Just, I mean, in quite a rational way, but it's him that's like, don't be ridiculous, this is a mental illness. So it's that is also what I like so much about this film.
The medical stuff is all depicted so well. They really committed, they really doubled down on maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves, but they really doubled down on the medical stuff and
all the diagnostic stuff.
But I agree. I think the thing that makes it interesting is the character development. I think that's true, because you start engaging with the characters, and that in itself is enough to carry you through the film, I think, you know, or keep you hooked into the film.
Because I think we probably can skip through, because I don't know, maybe you'll know.
We've got Demi, visited mother, she's like she's living by herself, like then has a bit of a turn later, and it's
sore leg.
And also, again, so we've got the priest's son, psychiatrist, who has got a bit of a guilt because he can't really afford to look after his mother properly, wish he could do more, wish he was closer, and also is having this crisis with faith, but he's supposed to be sort of supporting everyone else. So he's having his own issues on one side. And then we had this sort of kind of happier duo between the mother-daughter, but there's some tension on the side too, because clearly the father's out of the picture. The father's not getting in touch on the daughter's birthday. There's some anger there around that the daughter's seeing, but still managing to be kind of sweet around it. And then with all of that, we've got the continued scratching in the loft. We've got weird scenes.
I think you're right as well when we said that, sorry to interrupt, Karen, that when it was like, yeah, it's definitely the scene up, the one where she goes up into the attic next, because at that same stage there's Regan like lying in her bed just with her eyes just like wide open, when the mother goes up to, and that's when you're just like, something evil's happening.
Actually I thought that was for something that was probably a few seconds. I thought that was really great to sort of start the things rolling.
Just there, just like,
And then even we've got the scene where the mother, Chris, wakes up with her daughter, with Regan in bed with her, and she's like, why are you here? And she's like, because my bed's shaking. I think that's also a really interesting moment, because when she says that, and we get to see how much the bed shakes later on, it's like she says it very matter of fact, oh, the bed shakes. She doesn't go through, wake her mom up and go, my bed's freaking the hell out of me. She's just like,
I couldn't sleep. Like, now I'm in your bed, so I couldn't sleep through my...
As beds are occasionally wont to do.
You know, bed, it's just violent shaking. You're like, well, I can't sleep now. I got to go to my mum's.
That's right. That crazy US furniture.
That's right. Yeah. Opossums, not in the attic. Beds.
So our first, I guess, scarier scene. So there's the party scene, right?
Yeah.
So in their
Yeah.
house, the production crew, the actors.
Well,
I think so I guess it's because the film crew is all happening around the priests, and so there's a priest at the party. Who's playing piano and entertaining everyone, and then the director is horrendously drunk.
He's the worst person.
Oh my God,
he's very unlikable, isn't he?
He is.
And they're having a lot.
He's antagonizing the German butler by calling him
right.
Nazi.
Oh my God, yes.
And like, Nazi bastard, I do believe.
There you go. Helen's coined it for us. Nazi, to the point where like he punches. What I really like is though the butler punches him, and then when they all like descend, Chris is just like, "What are you doing?" It's like no one blames the guy for punching him. It's like, you stop it, get out of this house.
But do you think that was interesting, but do you think that it was almost like to take your eye off the ball? So there was this almost random, this awful man abusing this butler and this little fracas, and you sort of forget about everything else for a bit. To me, it was almost like, as I said, you take your eye off the ball, and then suddenly, things start happening again. Do you know what I mean?
No, I thought that was when that's happened, and now, like we've got rid of the problem. He's gone. We're back at the party. We're all having a jolly good sing along. And then it's the scene where like, and you're behind Regan, and she comes down, and then she says some fuck stuff and pisses on the carpet.
She says, "You're gonna die out there."
I guess that's right. You take your eye off the ball a bit, and you just have this party. But I guess they also had to give that character enough to do in the story that when he dies, spoiler, you know who it is.
True.
Right? Because otherwise, all you've done is you've seen him at like being a director once. Right? You don't know him otherwise. You're right.
And what I like too in terms of the camera stuff, it's when they're actually looking down at the people remaining, and the priest playing the piano and all that sort of stuff. You sort of get the sense of somebody looking in, and then you see the back of Reagan's head come. I think that's nice. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like somebody's looking, and then somebody appears who's been looking. I mean, that might just be my take on it, but I thought, with some of the other horror films too, with the way the camera's set up, it's set up in terms of like somebody's eyes.
I was going to say that it's different from the whole, like, this is the bad person walking along and we can see what they're seeing. It's that kind of like, we're just watching and then wait, like what? Because there is a second where you go, what is that feel? Like, I felt like even though I've seen it a bunch of times, when you see the person appear, I don't automatically go like, oh, that's Regan. Like it takes me a second to go like, what is, oh, okay,
Yeah, she's pissed on the floor.
She pisses on the floor. And she says that you're gonna die.
You're gonna die.
Yeah.
Up there.
Up there.
And everyone goes home.
Out the window, that's right. That's right, just like a normal party.
Everyone goes.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, of course.
And then it's weird because you got so is it like Reagan's in the bath and the mother's kind of like washing her back or doing something and just having a conversation like, like what, like why did you, it's this thing where she's obviously gone like something strange has happened, but like I'm not sure what it is, and she's just talking to her very calmly and said like, why did you say that, like what made you say something like that? And then Reagan's doing the creepy thing where she just like sits there and stares and doesn't say anything, which
didn't she say what's wrong with me to her mother?
Yeah, I think she does.
Point,
yeah, because I think,
but I didn't think in the bath.
Maybe not in the bath.
I think it's maybe when she takes her back to bed. I just remember being creeped out because she's just sitting in the bath, kind of like and like being washed, and then her mother's talking to her, and she's just like not responding. I think
she was somewhere else.
I think she's like, what's wrong with me when she takes her back to it.
Oh, maybe.
Okay.
Because her mother says it's nerves. She told her it was nerves.
Oh, maybe she does say that. Maybe I'm messing it all up in my head.
I don't know.
I still find
But she was nice. I thought the mother was nice.
Yeah, well, the mother is a good character all the way through when you think about it, in terms of the way she deals with, and I guess we'll talk about it later, the medical buffoons sort of thing in the end, and the way she insists on protecting the daughter. I mean, such a strong character, really.
And also, I think, so we see the opening and how important all of the acting stuff is and how big she is. But then as soon as her daughter needs her, you don't really see the acting stuff. It's just like, I'm looking at
everyone get out.
So I think, there's early taking to the doctor, getting tests, whatever. But then
in between that, it's when Dimmy has his fucked up dream. So this is the bit that I thought was placed really weirdly, because it's like, we do that
after his mom dies, right?
Basically before we go to the scenes where like they're trying to diagnose Reagan, there's like the bit where like there's a thing where his mom dies, and then he's in his room, and then his priest friend comes, and they're drinking, and then he goes to bed, and then he has like the weird dream where he comes out of a subway, and that's all just like a bit
that's right. Is that the one where the mother's got panda eyes?
She comes up the stairs at the
black circles around the eyes or something.
And then it's like, so you're just like, what is going, and then they just cut straight to like, we're now diagnosing, but it's like I really like that. So you kind of like, what is happening? And then hospital.
There are a lot of instances in the film where it feels like scenes are almost truncated, like it's 3 or 4 times where a scene just ends and moves on to the next one, and you're left feeling a bit disoriented by it.
I think disorientated is the right word for this, like everything, because even like we're saying the party and the distraction, the early scene, and we're just waiting for this Exorcist to come out. Like, you spend a lot of this film going, I don't know what's going on.
Who's the Exorcist? Is that the Exorcist? Is that the Exorcist?
Yeah.
Where are these massive rats? What's going on?
That's right.
Why do they sleep at night? What are they doing up there?
That's right. It does sort of keep you on edge in a way. That's right, because there's almost like a little, one unexpected cut to another unexpected cut sort of thing, I guess.
And as I say, the scary things for me in this film, and I'm sure when I saw it the first time, I probably would have been scared of the things you're supposed to, the child scenes and whatnot. But like the scratch in the loft, but that scene you're talking about with the dream about the mother, but even the scene where he goes to see when his mum's hospitalized before she dies. And you've got all of these older women in this, not well serviced health, and they're all coming up to you. Like, that's scarier than
grabbing him and the nurse is just like, oh, just leave him alone, leave the priest alone. That would be
I found that quite troubling, actually.
So that, I think as well, it's so much of the stuff that's the seemingly normal stuff that actually is what I find really upsetting. So I think you've been built up to be unsettled and troubled before everything else happens. And then you're right, we go to the medical scenes, and that's again where I find them so horrific. Like some of the procedures that go on, which actually, as you were saying, are done so well. And when I was reading about it, as I do probably again, Sophie, my Wikipedia joy, these were real clinicians apparently that they had doing actually, obviously not doing this to anyone,
really
but
doing it, but
going through the processes of what you do. That's why it's done so well. It's so realistic because
it was method acting at its best.
I did like seeing the doctor smoking one.
I thought that was good.
That was so 70s.
So
70s.
Although, did anybody find, so when the mother's in that home, in that place, the sudden appearance of the brother, I thought was odd. Like, it was Dimmy Dimmy looking after the mother and seemed to be the only character at one point.
And then all of
And
a sudden
suddenly the brother turns up
yeah.
and actually has enough power to put the mother into this strange place.
Yeah, because that's what, because Demi was pissed, right? He was like, why have you put her in this place?
Yeah.
That is a bit weird, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you also don't so the other bit back in that scene is you don't understand, well, I didn't understand when the mother died, because there's then that thing of she died on her own. So it's like, so was she released and then home and then no one was there and then she died? But again, maybe part of the disorientation of like, I'm still unsure of the sequence and the timing of all of this, but something bad has happened.
But her being put in the home, like with the brother, just from a mechanical standpoint, I guess you just need someone for him to talk to when he gets to the hospital. And also, it's good if the brother has done this, because it kind of emphasizes the priest's lack of power. Because he's like, why did you put her in here? And it's like, well, what am I going to do? I don't have money for a hospital. Do you? Like, you know, no one's got any power, and it kind of rams home his powerlessness a little bit.
And it's an interesting, because it's sort of, as we've spoken about it already, you know, the changes in scene, it sort of goes from one troubling bit to another troubling bit to another troubling bit, and so it keeps you sort of tense a lot of the time, sort of thing.
But yeah, you're right, Karen. I don't think any time I've seen this I've ever been clear exactly when she dies, because it's like, the last time we see her, she's in the hospital, or like the place, and then he, that's right, because Chris asks the priest friend about Demi. Like, I kept seeing this guy, and then she's just like, and he's like, oh, well, blah blah, this person. He's like, yeah, like the psychiatrist, like he's just had like a rough day or whatever, because like his mother died, something, you know. So it's like that is brought up, but like, we never really, I don't think it's, because the timeline then would be quite quick. It's like this, they sent her home, and then she died like pretty quickly, and then was
that's right. So she's
before they discovered her.
I agree. So she's sort of well, essentially at home, although frail. Then suddenly she's in this place, and then suddenly she's dead.
Well, not surprising. She probably died of a broken heart.
Oh God, all right.
No, but
if
you institutionalise people and they've got no connection, like, what have you got to live for?
Yeah, that's right. You know, so broken hearts are all no medical thing.
Shut up. Do you know what I mean? Lack of connection. Feeling abandoned.
Accelerated the whole thing.
That's right.
We're back.
Perhaps. We don't really know.
Where are we now?
So we're now back in the medical procedures to Regan.
And that's right. How fucked until they were.
And again, initially she was with some of the medical procedures, she was quite compliant at the start, but there's clearly been time going on and then being brought back in for more tests and whatnot, and she's clearly getting worse with whatever's going on, and then gets more and more difficult to manage.
And I think this is all really important, because this really like makes me sympathize with the main character, who's the mum. What's the mum? It makes me sympathize with Chris a lot more, because she has exhausted every possibility before she considers any alternative. Like, she really goes through the whole medical machine to try and find a solution, and it's horrific and it's involved, and she presses forward with it before she makes any kind of concession to, I'm going to call a priest.
And we also have the moment, and again, I don't know where it is in the sequence of the medical procedures, where, you know, obviously her daughter's not well, and she comes home one day to the house to find her daughter has been left on her own in bed, and she's like, where has everyone been? And the window's wide open in her daughter's room. And that's when we discover that the dude has died. Which dude is it?
The director.
Down the stairs.
And so we get, soon after that, we get introduced to the police character, who goes to talk to Debbie and work out what on earth's going on, because it turns out that for all anyone could just say he fell down the stairs, actually his head was all the way around, and he was clearly violently, I mean, it's like, you know, there's a chance this could have happened, but it's a very slim chance of a fall.
But also, just going back a bit, if I may, when you sort of get the last doctor discussion with, what was the name? Sorry, Chris. And suddenly, you know, we've done this, can't find anything. And then it's suddenly like a U-turn. And one of the doctors said, have you considered, I can't remember the words, but, you know, sort of, I don't know whether he said possession, but suggested that sort of thing. And to me, it seemed to be a little incongruous with all the stuff they've done up to that point.
I quite liked it because the way it was pitched was actually, is your daughter religious? Because there's this power of suggestion, power of persuasion that if you actually believe this is what's going on with you. So I guess it was kind of like an exhaustion on the team's perspective too.
And there were a lot. It's the opposite of placebo is nocebo. So you can make yourself ill by belief. So if you can make yourself ill by belief, you can make yourself better by belief. Maybe give that a shot.
Yeah. So it was almost like, I mean, I kind of watching it, and I think this when we watched it last year too. You quite like this about it too, where it was like, look, it's not going to do any harm. Was kind of like sort of.
But prior to that, one of the medicos did say you should look for a psychiatrist.
That's right, because she did say that, because then Chris comes home and then like the person who obviously looks after Reagan most of the time is like, how did it all go? And she's just like, oh, she said they said we had to start looking for a shrink. And then that's when she goes upstairs and she's like, there's no, like, why is Reagan by herself? Like, I feel like that, I think, fits in.
So that's roughly right. And then she goes to get hypnotized.
Yes. Yeah, I like the hypnotized scene. I feel like that's maybe one of my favorites.
Yeah.
I like this, the whole, like, we know we hypnotize if we've got our hand, it's like up, but it's like limp but stiff.
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure about that, whether she was actually leaning on something or just holding her hand in the first place.
Well, I think this is the thing, because it's kind of like, I'm now like, I wouldn't be surprised if the precursor to that, which is maybe a cut scene, was like they did a thing and then she's like, look, we're completely in control, look, I'll put her hand there and she'll leave it there. It's just this thing where she's just got this kind of limp wrist but like stiff arm just the whole time. But yeah, then we talked to the person inside Reagan.
That's right. Is there anybody inside you?
Just the devil. No, was it Mr. Howdy?
Mr. Howdy.
Mr. Howdy. Yeah.
So what happens again? She's hypnotized. They say, I am now speaking to the person inside Reagan.
Yeah.
And then I feel like something bad happens, but I can't remember what it is.
I'm the same. Now you're talking about it, I'm like, I remember this scene. It does get bad.
She fucks up the guy hypnotizing. So basically the guy's hypnotizing, going like, can I talk to the person inside? And she's like, no. And it's like, why? Like, because I'm scared. Like, why are you scared? And then like he gets too close. She does something, like she hurts him.
Yeah.
She grabs his testes.
That's it. Yeah. Thank you, Helen. She grabs his balls. Yeah.
Non-supernatural but horrifying.
Yeah. And he was in pain.
Yes.
Yeah, because
that's right. And then again, what was interesting, so that happened, and then quickly it just goes snap and goes to another scene.
With somewhere else,
Yeah.
Like she's possibly destroyed this man's testicles. We're not fussed anymore because here's what's happening next.
We don't hear about this poor man ever again.
No, he didn't have children.
No.
And yeah, I think when she decides to go, like, so she does discover, after all the hospital testing and everything's really exhausting, and she's had, like that horrible scene where she's getting the tube in her throat and the blood and all.
Yeah. Oh, but, they do the MRI and then and then there's the bit where and it just spurts blood out.
Yeah, see that I mean, I don't know, that was just so intense in a way that, I mean, I found that one of the most horrible bits, despite.
Me too. And I think, again, when I was reading about it, that was one of the that was a controversial scene, but because people were really unhappy that was in it because they felt it was unnecessary. But I think it was having the medical horror and then the possession horror that I actually quite like about it, because that again was a bit where I was like, oh, does that actually happen? That's horrendous. I don't like that.
I don't want that. Helen, are you saying no, that doesn't happen?
No.
Helen is putting her foot down. It doesn't happen.
So that stuff doesn't bother me.
That's right. But also, if it happens, it's accidental rather than intentional. Yeah. I think a bit of arterial blood being sprayed around.
Yeah. Helen loves a bodily fluid in a medical context.
And I think you said as well, whatever procedures they were doing, they wouldn't have done in the way they'd done then anyway, or something.
Because the first one is like, I feel like obviously it's very clear. We're scanning brains because we're looking at pictures of brains. What's the second test that they do when they go back for the second test? And she's
the angiogram with the
blood. The cerebral angiogram.
Is that what it is? Where she's just screaming on a board?
Yeah.
There's one where there's a kind of
do
thing
3 different
rotating
tests.
around the
Yeah.
top of her head, and I'm not sure what that is.
That's
That
the
was
one
the
that I'm like,
real
what is that
early
one?
MRI type.
Right.
With a machine that goes chunk, chunk, chunk,
Yeah,
chunk.
that's what they
Yeah.
used to do, not the
There's
tube.
one where the machine's going chunk, 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 and she's stationary, and then there's the one where like the machine is going around, and it's the second test, and she's just lying there, and just like, and then just like scream, like it's horrible. I was like, I don't want medical help ever again.
Well,
Yeah,
that's,
so-
they're a little bit more sophisticated.
Yeah.
Well,
And
what
that's
I'm
right.
saying, again, I'm going to quote Wikipedia here, but the angiographic scene, when they say the needle's inserted into Regan's neck and spurts blood and closely imitates the real life procedure, has come under criticism. People have said, Danny Peary, in a guide for the film fanatic, called it the film's most needless scene. Some physicians have said it was genuinely disturbing and called it a really irresponsible feature of the film. But they've said medical professionals have described the scene as a realistic depiction of the procedure. It's also of historical interest in the field, as around the time of the film's release, radiologists had begun to stop using the carotid artery for the puncture as they do in the film in favour of a more distant artery. Yeah, and it's also been described as the most realistic depiction of a medical procedure in a popular film.
Oh, there you go.
Helen begs to differ with that face.
Well, I've never seen one
It just,
like that.
it
I
just,
mean, again, Wikipedia,
But I mean-
but it's referenced Wikipedia. I've just not
Yeah,
looked at
no,
the references. So.
it just shows you that reality is more scary than made up
And
stuff.
also, like, it is, as we just said, it is the past, right? Like, this movie
Well,
was
yeah,
made,
we're talking
what, in
70s,
70, whatever,
years
like,
ago. Yeah.
it was a while ago.
That's right, the 50s when doctors could still smoke, or 70s. Whatever.
Yes.
The doctor's smoking in this, yeah.
Okay, so with Reagan second tested. Now she's, because I feel like it's after that, and then you got like the guy who seems to be like the leading physician who's talking to another person, and they're looking at results or something, being like, I'm interested in this, and then they get the phone call from like the house being like, you've got to come ASAP, shit is going down, and they go in there, and is that when she's just doing her little flying off the bed thing? Is it that stage where she's just?
It's
I
when the
thought
bed,
there was-
bed starts rattling, you mean?
No, that was before. I think the bed's right. It's like, what? It's like, yeah, you've got the two doctors, and they rush to the house.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it is, because like then Chris is just like, you've got to help, and she's just doing that thing where she's just like, she's jump spasming off the bed.
Oh, that's right. She's bouncing, essentially bouncing up and down, but sort of being thrown.
Oh,
up
yeah, she's
down.
doing
And
that
then
thing.
just doing this thing. Yeah, she's
Yeah.
doing all of us. Yeah, and they're just like, it's just a spasm.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Don't
Yeah,
worry
that's
about
right.
it.
Damn those muscles, eh? God, they're strong.
Yeah.
And then they give her some kind of tranquilizer, because then at some stage, then she's like asleep and fine.
Which I find interesting. I find interesting that the demon is susceptible to pharmacological intervention.
Actually,
Mm.
you bring up a good point, actually, because the thing, just from time to time, it's a bit hard to know. So it seems like there is some, well, you know, it's a bit like earlier on in the film with the hypnosis and stuff. So you can ask an independent thing inside her stuff that will still answer independently. And you're right. So you're dealing with often an amalgam or two parts of a thing. Do you know what I mean? And that and I found that a bit what was sort of interesting, I suppose. But sometimes it just didn't seem to fit with me, like as you say. So the devil could do, you know, or the demon, the devil, whatever, could do particular things to the body overtly, but other times was relatively controllable, like it was something else.
Well, like, yeah, I mean, I guess like the hypnosis thing was like the suggestion that there, you know, it was like multiple personalities or something, where it's like we're talking to like Reagan, but there's something inside of her. But then you're just like, look, if it's like a demon or the devil, like this, maybe like it was just playing. Maybe it was playing along, you know? You don't know.
Maybe you can always, we can always-
Within world explanations.
Yeah.
It was just like, look, they're doing that medicine thing. Let's just pretend that it's work. Let's lull them into a false sense of security.
Because it almost seemed a bit like ongoing intermittent possession, really.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, it was a gradual progression to completely, so like it was slowly but surely gaining control, because it's not all crazy straight away. It starts with bed shaking, it starts with her moving, then some heads turn around, like, you know, it then goes wild.
Then some heads turn around, love it, yeah.
But yeah, I like when they're proposing that she might consider an exorcism, and then is it the butler dude leaves a crucifix under her pillow? when they
That's
bring her
right.
back.
Although everybody denied it, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She has like the nanny person. She's just like, no. But no, I think, well, didn't someone go like, yeah, I did? Wasn't it one of the
I can't remember who admitted. I can't remember who admitted
I
to
thought
it.
it was like
They
the
all
woman
denied
who'd been I thought it was the woman who'd been cooking the breakfast that
Maybe
one.
it was.
Who was just like, yeah, I fucking did. I left a fucking crucifix under a pillow. She's a little possessed weirdo. I'm helping.
But we should not have left the crucifix under the pillow.
Actually,
No, we know what happened.
no, we're not up to the holy water yet, are we? I'll make a comment about that later.
No, but there's the bit where she's hitting herself in her junk with a fucking crucifix.
And that's Bastioni.
In a real, well, I mean, it's not, I mean, I don't think there's any pleasure being derived from this.
No,
She had parts with a fucking crucifix till then.
yeah, but when you look at the amount of blood there, the damage or the suggested damage is not inconsequential.
It's pretty significant, right?
Yeah, that's right. And you're thinking, bloody hell, this would have killed this person ordinarily. She would have bled to death. And it sort of happens, and it's, you know, obviously pretty spectacular and revolting and all those sorts of things, and the language is a bit, you know, a bit ordinary and all those sort of things. And it sort of seems to go back to like a normal possession later, if you know what I mean.
I know what you mean, where we've got it's like an oscillatory possession, right? Like it peaks and then you've got these tropes, like she can just be asleep, and then we go back to where she's hitting herself in the junk with a crucifix, and then like we go back and like the medication.
Hitting herself in the crucifix, beating up her mum, you know, all that stuff.
Oh yeah, she really thumped her mum.
Yeah, don't she?
And then sometimes some chest of drawers move around and you're trapped and whatnot. But I think around about that time, her mum's like, maybe I will go and see a priest.
Yeah.
Why not? Let's give it a go.
I
And
do
that's
really like that meeting with Demi where he comes up and goes like, are you blah, blah, blah? And she just like is real standoffish. She's like, no, like I'm the person that you want to meet. Like I'm like confirming your identity. I'm not like fangirling.
yeah. Because is that after we've already had the scene where like the police officer or the detective comes to speak to her?
That's
because he's not like something's happened and it's likely the person's been pushed from her daughter's window.
I think, does that not even happen before the detective sees Demi?
Possibly.
I don't know. Anyway, but his scene.
And he kind of like, I mean, it's quite it's a funny scene, but he does fan out at like her, because he's like, oh, can I get an autograph from my daughter? And he's like, actually, it's for me.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's that's why she was just like, hey, no fans, like leave me be. And he's like, no, you called me here.
I'm just not dressed as a priest. I'm in my like leisure wear.
I'm in my ex-boxer leisure wear.
Yeah.
I like they bring up a bunch of times that like it's like, oh yeah, you look like a boxer. Yeah, you're a boxer. You must have been a boxer.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And when he gets angry later on or frustrated, whatever, and he's pounding the
he's breaking the Exorcist's chest. The guy who does that, he's just having just done a CPR. You a third of the depth compression. You don't hit him that hard. That's true. You got to hit a lot of force. You might break a rib. That's fine. They can't sue you if you break a rib. If you save their life, it's fine. But like that wasn't CPR. He was just beating him in the chest with his boxer fists. It's too hard, guys. It wasn't going to help. I'm telling you.
Isn't that an old piece of advice too?
It wasn't going to help.
I've seen that one other time. I've seen that in the documentary film Star Trek VI: The Undiscovered Country.
That famous documentary about the trek of stars.
There's a dying Klingon and Dr. McCoy hits him on the chest in a similar fashion. So I wondered if that was just an old piece of CPR advice that's maybe...
We used to do back in the day. Okay. It was called a precordial thump, and you did that as your first thing that you did before, and it was meant to like shock the heart, as in,
give it a surprise.
Maybe
that's the bit much.
And suddenly go, and then we stopped doing it because we realised that you could actually explode the heart and they would die.
And all it did was actually shock the bystanders
or anything, but that's bad.
But it looked really impressive when you went.
Isn't it amazing how much medicine has progressed in the last 50 years?
Yeah, thank God.
Punch someone in the chest, it won't.
That's right.
Yeah.
And they're not recommending exorcists anymore.
No. Stop doing that.
They barely were in the 70s, apparently.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Last resort, isn't it? Yeah. So so we've moved to. So I think we're at the crucifix stage.
Yeah, because like So because she speaks to the priest, and he's like, "No, we don't
she's
do
like,
this.
Give
This
me an
is silly."
exorcism, and he's like, "What are you, crazy?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Nobody-
religious nut job. What are you talking about?
That's right, like a psychiatrist would really say.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's like
right.
we don't do this. This is not a thing.
And then would she like just come see this kid and make up your
Which also
mind?
seemed fair enough given he is a psychiatrist.
Yeah,
Like,
100%.
why not?
Like, okay, if you won't give her an exorcism, like please just come and like,
Consultation.
yeah, consultation for sure.
And she is very disturbing when he first sees her because, well, she says things to him about his mum, and wouldn't know that she was dead.
And he chucks holy water on her that's not holy water.
Oh, see, that's what I was going to
Like
bring up, because in
after, right?
theory,
Like, he met her and then was a bit like, I don't know, and then like went and like holied some water. And
Yeah, because he was like, if
No,
this,
because he said it's not holy water. He said
Yeah.
it's tap water.
no, but like,
no, it is, but you see the scene of the whole, so you're meant to think it's holy water.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
there
Because
and he's
he-
doing this thing and
Yeah.
you're like, he's making some holy water, he goes back, oh, he's holy watering her, that's why she's screaming. But then yeah
Because he does get freaked out
With
by her
us.
the first visit, and then it's a case of, well, if you wanted to do, if you're going to make a case that we
Yeah.
need an exorcism, there are some requirements,
We've got
and
criteria. God has
and one of
criteria.
them was like, well, we'll do the holy water test, except you're right, it was tap water, but she
trickle water.
reacted very, very badly to it. So it's like, well, this is not good because this
Yeah.
is not demonic possession.
no. See, that's what I found a contradiction in a way. So if that was the case, wouldn't you think, well, it's, a fairly twisted poor child there sort of thing, but it can't be, a demonic thing if the holy water is actually meant to be proof of the concept.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
playing it. She's
So I
playing
didn't quite understand why it worked, but it shouldn't have worked, and then they went on, if you know what I mean.
Maybe she just had like a real dramatic demon in her. It's like, like the Wicked Witch of the West, you get water on her and she melts. Like everyone
That's
has
true,
this thing
actually.
about
There is
water.
precedent.
So it was the power of suggestion for the demon.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
he was taking recordings of her, and then what's this language? Well, it's English. She's just speaking backwards.
I feel like that's I blame The Exorcist for that becoming a trope. Like I feel like there are too many movies where like someone's speaking like a weird thing, and if you play it in reverse, like they're just speaking English. It's happened too many times now.
That's right. Just like that Beatles recording.
That's right.
Yeah, the Beatles and Alice Cooper and Led Zeppelin and everyone
Yeah.
kind of round about the same time
Yeah.
that was happening.
It's true, right? No, you're right. It's everyone's fault.
So is that around this time when she had that help me on her abdomen?
That was late.
Later, I thought.
I'm confused. Like my question as well about all this. Again, I'm so bad with the chronology in this, but I think it's just constantly confusing. But when does she turn her head round for the first time?
That I reckon that's like around. It's either the first or second Demi meet. I think it's the
Yeah,
second.
it's because it's with the Demi meeting. I love that I'm trying to do it, Sophie. I'm like, yeah, she turns her head around. I'm like,
where it just goes the whole way.
like, you know when it does that?
No, you're right. So I think it's not I don't reckon it's the first Demi meeting because she just says like some weird shit. Like, we need a bunch, because that's right. Because he has the conversation with the mother afterwards where it's like, here's the things that would be like your classic possession symptoms.
Yes.
Speaking in a language she doesn't know, like Latin, like all, blah, blah. So it's like, but I reckon it's the second one. I think where she does and I feel like that's one thing that does age this movie. I feel like a lot, like the bouncing, that like there's a lot of things that are still fine, but I feel like the whole like the head rotation and then for a second it's like here's like a wax thing and then now it's fine. Like there's the one bit where it just like that looks like a little bit shit. But again.
Yeah, and I agree. And I found the green Play-Doh vomit a little,
Green paint.
Yeah, it didn't really look disgusting enough for me. It looked like liquid green Play-Doh.
It's very homogenous for vomit.
Yeah, it was too
Yeah.
But she was being fed at one stage by a drip through her nose, right? She hadn't had solids for a while. Now,
Yeah, but it should be very watery.
Oh, okay, so it should be more.
I just thought that's what devil's sick is. Like I just in world.
You guys are
Like,
thinking about real world sick, and we're talking about possession sick.
yeah, exactly.
That's
Very
right.
different. Very different. It's kind of slime like.
Yeah, it was very like
It was sort of Kermit Green demonic slime.
All I'm saying is like that would have felt at home in Mr. Boogedy.
Yes,
Yeah.
you're absolutely right.
Actually, that's a good point because it out of all of the film, that was a bit for me that seemed almost. I mean, but it's about time, I guess, more than anything. But it seems almost not amateurish exactly, but you know what I mean. That was one of the things that I thought was not particularly disgusting, sort of thing.
A bit clumsier, maybe,
or whatever. Yeah,
and just never meant to be watched in a high definition.
No, that's true. Actually,
yeah.
That's right. If it was some grainy production, it would have been much better.
Yeah, it wasn't 50 years.
Yeah. Yeah, when color reproduction would presumably have been different as well, and maybe it looked great. I always think that about Fake Blood, that maybe Fake Blood looked absolutely fine like 50 years ago, just because.
The bright red 19.
Yeah.
Where you just like, no one's blood has ever been that color.
Yeah.
It's red.
Or splashes around quite as much.
That's true.
Yeah.
But anyway, Demi's convinced that something's problematic. And decides that he does want to make a case that there should be an exorcism, and proposes that he could do it. But they decide to call back our pal from the very start,
archaeologist from Iraq,
who is back from Iraq, but is in the woods somewhere.
Woodstock. He was at Woodstock.
He's in Woodstock.
That's right.
That's what he was doing. He's not in the wood. He was in Woodstock.
He'd been to Woodstock, got stoned, decided to stay there.
Writing a book about the festival.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah. Some many years later.
Yeah. And did you think he looked particularly unhealthy to start? Actually.
Yes.
He was almost like a pale grey colour.
He needed some vitamins and a cheeseburger, I reckon.
You did go back to Iraq, I think, get some sun.
Yeah, that's true.
So he comes along, but they've decided that Demi can assist because, well, you know, it's no harm in having a psychiatrist around anyway. So then they basically go to start the exorcism straight away, right?
Yeah.
Like,
a bit of an Our Father together.
Have
an old Our Father.
So did you think they were doing a sort of quick and dirty in a way? Because after Dini said you need to get, it takes a long time to get approval and, has to do all sorts of things. Then suddenly they're often doing an exorcism.
Yeah. It was very fast.
Maybe they just like accelerated. Maybe they just accelerated this one.
She didn't talk backwards. I mean, I can't do that.
She did turn her head all the way around.
Yeah, she did turn her head all the way around, and she's really good at doing things like getting a little bit too high off the bed.
Yeah,
and at that point as well, the mother was convinced that her possessed daughter, had killed the director. So at that point, they're also like, "This is dangerous. Someone has died. I've also been beaten up. Furniture is moving. This is horrible." And so, of course, Regan has been tied to the bed, partly again as well, to save herself from herself too, and everyone else. So she's, because you're right, there was that point where she had the help me.
Yeah.
I think that's also where it maybe got accelerated, because there's something within Regan asking for help by etching "help me" on
because that's when there's some in the trough of the oscillatory possession, and so she's asleep, and then so Regan can be all like, I'm slightly taking more control of this body.
Yeah.
I just imagine her inside with her own finger.
So we've got the exorcism going on with the exorcist who's very unwell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he shouldn't have been given a gig. He just needs to go to something. They send people away to Switzerland to
health farm, sanatorium.
Sanatorium. I was going to say a sanitarium, and I was like, I don't think that's what it is.
No, that's a breakfast cereal.
That's right.
And they're both getting a lot of abuse, but they're still going. and then more of that green fun vomit goes on The Exorcist. So
is that when she sort of floated up for a bit and just hung around above the bed for a bit?
yeah, maybe, because she does manage to get out of her binding to have a wee float.
She does.
That's right.
I feel like that's
That's right, 'cause
towards
she
the end.
floated up after that, didn't she? I think.
Yeah, she's just hanging. She's just like hanging out and
Levitate.
the meters off the bed.
Yeah.
I love how clearly there's terror in all of our chat about this.
So, like,
So,
well, I think it's Karen when you say something when she has a wee float. It just
I love
comes
it.
from
I love
kind of like.
It's so good.
Karen's version of The Exorcist. Let's
No,
do
I love
Scottish
it.
style.
Yeah, she gets out of her bindings, has a wee float, goes back
Yeah.
down, writes something on her stomach, vomits green at them. Like, yeah.
Yells something at them that probably would just be translated to pal in Glaswegian. So where's the terror there? You know, like, it's fine. She just wanted to chat.
Does she like? Does she vomit all over Demi and then like? No, because there's a couple of things that happen. Because it's like So at one stage we come back in and the exorcist priest is dead, but I feel like that happens after. There's one time where he's like, "Don't."
They have a
He
rest.
gets a bit too upset because
Yeah.
the girl, the demon is impersonating his mother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Max von Sydow was like, Demi, just maybe give it a rest, man. Just get out of here. So he's outside and he has a wee calm down, and then he goes back up, and Max von Sydow, bit dead.
And also this, so again, I mean, I'm trying to think the scary, apart from like levitating and stuff that didn't freak me out, but it's that horrible scene where he goes back in the room and the exorcist is lying dead and she's out of her bindings, but just sitting in the corner of her bed. I think that really creepy. That's horrible, because it's just like, because it's just a girl sitting in her bed, but it's this demon possessed thing that was beating people up, and it's just like, oh, you're out of your binding, you're ready to like, you could take it out, and you're just sitting
smiling,
there.
right? Like, as in, he does that really like what did you call it, Mum, when you beat someone in the chest in the past to resuscitate them?
Precordial thumb.
He does his little precordial thump, and she is just sitting there, just kind of like low key grinning.
Yeah.
Doesn't she have a little laugh, a little giggle?
Yeah, she does, because he's done this whole like, damn it, and he's just like beating it, and then just like stops, and she's just sitting there like having the time of her fucking life. Like, I made this, I did it.
Yeah, I agree. So that's one of the things that is the most, well, not spooky, but impressive part. It's sort of that absolute evil looking on, having essentially killed somebody rather. I think it's a new thing with that look in her eye. I thought, that's a fabulous moment, I reckon.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's horrible. And what I like about this, I mean, having seen the director's cut last year, is this whole bit around the exorcism is condensed. And so there's a bit more tension in the theatrical one that I really enjoy. And so it has that creep element. And then it's just that rapid, like, now Demi's like, take me, and ends up possessed.
I do like that little bit, the bit where like he gets possessed and he gets the yellow eyes, and just like the way that he looks, it just reminds me of the Hulk. Like, I can't unsee it. Like, I'm strong and I'm a boxer, and his eyes are like, it just like they flash the color, and then he kind of goes like, and I just see the Hulk. Anyway, and then he jumps out the window.
But did you find that, take me, whatever, that happened so quickly that I was a bit surprised? Do you think, well, I guess, any soul is the same as any other soul.
It's the thing where it's like, so he's tried to resuscitate the guy. She's laughing. And then he just like grabs her and starts beating the child. And then eventually
he beats the crap out of her. Yeah, that's
right. Oh my God, I forgot that scene.
There's like a bit of a gap between beating the shit out of a child and then take me. I feel like that's too long. It's like, we're aware that it's not the girl child doing this, but he's just like,
doesn't it? So he hits, and doesn't he have her hands around her neck when that happens? When he says "take me."
I think we're hit, and then we've grabbed, and then it's going to like, take me.
Yeah.
I think you're right. Yeah. It's just a bit. You're like, that's a 12-year-old girl. Yes, she's possessed, but you're beating a 12-year-old girl around the head. Don't do that.
No.
Well, the mother earlier on does actually say, that's not my daughter in there, doesn't she?
That's true. I mean, yeah. But then you're right. Anyway, so Demi is possessed, and he jumps out of, he follows the director, although the director went out the open window. He just catapults himself out of the window. And then, as we've already talked about, some really red blood comes out of his mouth.
Oh yeah.
And it's interesting, you know, it's the same tumble down those stairs and everything. So, you know, the mirror, not a mirror image, but the same sort of fate as the first person.
Now I feel like it's that thing where it's like we didn't see what happened to the director, but now we've cleared it all up because this is very similar. Someone got thrown and someone threw themselves. Yeah.
And I thought the religious punchline was nice when the other priest came and asked, you know, and actually, did he want confession?
Yeah.
Oh, give me a break.
And
honestly,
is like, I presume
about what?
he's staying as part of like a Catholic last rites in Latin. Is that what that was? Like when he starts just talking.
Would look.
I don't understand.
Yeah, look, it would have been, but the thing is, that's a nonsensical thing. So you know, here's this priest who's got back his faith, has just done an exorcism, has actually died for this, and this other toss is asking him basically, you know, do you want to penance for your sins? And I think, oh, please.
Father loves
that's Catholicism.
Also, he can only respond to by holding up bloody fingers.
That's right. You know, and that's for me. That's Catholicism. That's why I love it so much.
I just beat up a little girl.
Like I flew out the window.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Bless me, Father, for I've sinned.
I beat up a small girl. I jumped out of a window. I know that suicide is a sin, and now I'm dying on the pavement. But like I did it for the good of everybody. But I'm just telling you in Morse code with my hand.
That's right. And please forgive me for all that.
Yeah, sorry. Father.
Yeah, nobody does guilt like the Catholics.
And then everything's fine, right? And then everything's fine. You know, aside from like some fading scratches in her face, Regan is okay.
She's come out of it pretty well for like someone who looks.
She can't remember it.
Yeah, she can't remember anything.
Given the fact that her neck did a complete 360 at one point in time.
Yeah, healed up quite well.
Did you do a 360 or did you do a 180 and rotate back?
Oh, sorry, probably 180.
We never saw what happened.
Oh, we don't know. It might have. I mean, it might have.
Couldn't know what I'm saying. Is like it could have done a 360 100%, or it could have done like a 180 and gone back. We don't know.
No.
We should go right to about this.
We need to know. And basically they're heading off. They're leaving the house. They've packed up. Someone finds the medallion that Demi wore.
Right.
Hands it to
because Chris. It wasn't Chris gave it to the other priest.
Chris gives it to the other priest, the friend priest, the one that did the friend priest that played piano at the entertainment
what
thing.
What is the friend priest's name? Did you say it before, Mom?
Dyer, Father Dyer.
I feel like you.
I wrote it down.
Yeah, I think
it is Father Dyer.
Yeah. Okay, Father Dyer.
I believe. Yes.
But then she kissed him, didn't she? Regan kissed him.
Saw the collar.
And then kissed him on the cheek.
Yeah, that's right.
Harlot.
And then off they go, and it ends with that priest on the stairs, looking down at where his friend had died.
Not going that way.
Which is a bit sad.
And so, can I clarify something? So, at the start of the film, we've got the waking up of the evil and the finding of the medallion. And at the end of the film, we have Father Karras absorbing the evil and dying. Is the implication that his stuff has somehow ended up buried in northern Iraq because he's become part of this evil by giving himself to it?
Yeah, so we got.
Is there like a time travel paradox thing underlying everything?
It's the same with the police officer finds the little rock demon at the bottom of the stairs. So there's the things that are in Iraq that are also in Washington, and it just is all this confusing mess of. So I had this thing of like, you know, in some of these kind of films, it's like these things are found and someone has taken them from the museum or taken them shouldn't have been moved. And brought them over, but that doesn't seem to be what's happening here. It's that priest has it, but suddenly it's in Iraq. I don't know, like it's very weird.
It is weird.
But again, maybe it's part of this also, just general confusion I have around The Exorcist. But
is that why the US went to war?
Yes.
That's very tense.
That's right, Sophie.
That's right. Over demonic medallions, that's right.
No, it's a good question because I feel like I've never actually thought about that. But you're right, like that little thing and the medallion like turns up again.
Yeah.
And I've never ever actually thought about that.
And there's that scene during the exorcism where Max von Sydow's still alive, where he looks over at the bed and he sees Reagan in one corner and he sees this creepy statue.
That's true, actually.
As well. So I thought they were trying to link those things, and the fact that his medallion turns up under the thing is that, like, has it somehow ended up there because of Father Karras's deeds at the end of the film?
Because what I think, see it in a more...
So it's actually a sci-fi.
Yeah, because in a more... in a more contemporary horror, you know, where they over-explain everything, what would have happened likely is that she would have gone up to the loft where they're scratching and found a rock, found a medallion that's a creepy thing, and then suddenly that's released the demon from the attic, and it would have been someone stolen things they shouldn't have stolen. So, like, I think that's what also I really like about The Exorcist is I don't get this, but I don't really want to, and that's fine. Whereas I think this over-explained, this was stolen thing would, I guess, have made it a more inferior film.
No, I think I agree.
Yeah.
I agree, Karen.
And the other thing I was reflecting on with my various readings about Exorcist is, you know, we always talk about, like, the horror genre is something that's very often overlooked and seen as about, and it's also a way for unknown actors to get a kind of foot in the door. And what I thought was really interesting reading about The Exorcist, because it was stuff I didn't know, but the fact that it was such a successful book and they tried so hard to get really, like, A-list folk in it, because I hadn't realized they approached Audrey Hepburn.
Oh, wow.
And who else was there after? She couldn't do it because she was living in Rome, apparently, and she was like, I'll do it if you come to Italy. And they were like, no. And then they approached Anne Bancroft, but she was pregnant. So she was like, I'll do it, but if you wait 9 months. And they were like, nah. Apparently someone also had suggested Shirley MacLaine. So there was a lot of, like...
Oh, wow.
And then... And the same with, apparently they were going to... Who was it they were thinking about for... So Marlon Brando was going to be the Exorcist, but that...
He wasn't.
But then apparently Jack Nicholson was up for the part of Karras. And again, this is...
he wasn't, yeah.
But again, this is Wikipedia, so don't quote me on this.
No, I'm quoting Wikipedia, but yeah.
And apparently Paul Newman also went... I don't know, but like...
Oh, no, that wouldn't have been...
I feel like the women replacements I'm fine with. Any man you just mentioned, not interested in any of them in the Exorcist.
And I thought and Von Sydow was great as the elderly priest, I thought.
And what I really like was apparently, again, Wikipedia, but apparently the actor that they end up getting playing Demi, I mean, these were all quite unknown people, but he was in a play about a priest losing faith or whatever, and they just really liked, and they liked his brooding looks and whatnot, and the fact he did seem a bit upset. But as I say, what I really like about this is that it was kind of like, this was successful anyway, and the cast is very good. And then I just love, like, I don't know, it's just like seeing so much horror as we do and not knowing a lot of the time who actors are, and it's just like, it's become this sort of laughed at genre, and the genre where people can come in, but like this one, they were like, it's not going to be successful without A-list, and then it was anyway.
Yeah, and then they became...
But don't you think it actually shows you, like we sort of touched on earlier, you know, you have good character development, a good story, you know, be it the fact that, you know, things mysteriously appear and disappear, you know, without any explanation. But I think if the storyline's good and the character development is good, that makes a film really. I mean, the A-listers are about dollars rather than the good film. I mean...
Yeah. And I really like it. Like, I do really like it. I remember when I watched it again last year, like, it wasn't something I'd go, oh yeah, I'm in a rush to watch The Exorcist. And when we watched it last year, I was like, actually, I really like this. And so when it was suggested again, I'm like, oh yeah, I like that film. I liked seeing it again.
As I said, like, I think I liked it enough that I bought it on DVD one time that I saw it like on DVD for sale. And I was just, I think it's a really good one. It's a good one. Well done, Helen.
And it's nice to know that there are films like that, and, you know, my favourite is, you know, Psycho, that stand the test of time in terms of storytelling, really. And you're right, I think horror, because you can make relatively cheap slasher movies, really, to sort of, you know, titillate or whatever sort of people, and it does give them a bad name generally, because, I mean, it does seem a poor cousin to lots of other films, whereas a good horror film is as good as any other film, really, if the basic components are there, I think.
I think you're right. I think like nowadays, like you can make like such a cheap, shitty horror movie. I feel like it's the modern stuff that has like tainted it. Because I think even in the past, even like the crappy B and C grade stuff, there was still, like I think I told you guys I made Karen and Dave watch The Four Skulls of Jonathan Drake.
Oh, right.
And like it was full of problems, but it had soul, Whereas
it had something, Sophie. I'm not. Are we going back to defending this one?
No, it's very racist and problematic. But like, it's just like I think the fact that like a new horror comes out on Netflix or whatever, and it's just like they're just so shit. I think it's like if I see a new horror that isn't terrible, it's quite exciting. And I think that's quite sad that like this genre has become this kind of like very like mass produced like slasher, like gore, whatever, without any thought. Like it's just scary. You got your jump scares, you got all this stuff, and you just like more often than not, Karen and I will like message each other being like, have you seen this thing on Netflix? It's terrible. You should watch it. Like it's never like, it's amazing. It's like, it's trash. It's genuine trash. You should definitely watch it though, kind of thing.
Yeah. But you're right, especially the slasher ones, so it's, Freddy, what's his name?
Freddy Krueger.
Thank you. Freddy Krueger, number 16 sort of thing. And you're thinking, well, how many times do you need screaming innocent damsels being slashed a bit sort of thing? I mean, it's the same old thing. And it's really cheap.
As much as I love the Halloween franchise, I did see the new Halloween movie. It's like everything you hated about Halloween. Just think about those things in particular, make it modern, cheaper, and then like 20 times more offensive. It was pretty terrible. But so I think it's like I think The Exorcist is very good. Apparently they did a remake. What was it when I was looking at The Exorcist last night? Because it was the second Exorcist, which I've never seen.
Yeah, there was, but I can't remember it, to be honest.
And I think, did they not do a remaster or a re-release in like 2000 or something? Because remember, Sophie, I told you I went to Paris and I spent the whole time just going L'Exorcist, because that was just that was in all the posters the whole time I was in my high school trip. So I think that must have been around about 2000.
There is a movie from 2004 called Exorcist: The Beginning with Stellan Skarsgård in it.
Goodness me.
What? I'm going to suggest this is our next movie.
Yes. Because I'm curious.
2004, Exorcist: The Beginning, Stellan Skarsgård, and then who else do I know from this cast? Not that many people.
Yeah. Proper horror.
I don't know what you've got. While doing missionary work in Africa, Father Lancaster Marin comes across a boy who's behaving strangely. Further investigation reveals that he is possessed by an ancient demon. Okay, I don't know. Anyway, but I thought they did like a remake of the actual. I could be wrong.
I thought they made a remake too, but
there was definitely a sequel that had Linda Blair in it, and it's called Exorcist II: The Heretic, and I have not.
Oh, that's right.
I've not seen that, but then I think they've probably made a bunch. I think it's not as bad as Halloween, but I think they've definitely thrashed something.
But look, I was just gonna
go ahead. No, you go.
No, I was actually just wanting to I was going to wrap up, Helen, by asking you, firstly, if you're now into The Exorcist, and secondly, if we've brought you into horror and you will watch more, given that you've rewatched The Exorcist and not scared, or...
And you watched
Halloween. I know. I'm feeling like I'm moving over to the dark side.
Yay!
A little bit.
That's what I like to hear.
Well, let's call it the grey side for the time being.
No, it's actually quite interesting. But I was surprised that it didn't scare me this time. But I think it's what we were saying earlier. But what I was about to say was I just think of Linda Blair as a 12-year-old or whatever she was. I mean, she was obviously around the age-ish. What would be the psychological impact of, I know she's in an acting role and all the rest of it, but like she was using a lot of profanities and language that a kid of that age probably wouldn't have been using in those days. And, some of those scenes, like I assume she was getting psychological
So I read about this too.
Oh, okay.
Again, same Wikipedia, right? So,
yeah.
but apparently that was one of the challenges with this film broadly, because they didn't think that a 12-year-old would be capable of doing this film and carrying it. And so the child was so important. And so they were going to actually get an older actress, but it had to be a young kid. And so again, they'd thought about a few people and some known or more known actresses, but they didn't think that was going to work. And it just so happened that she and her mum went in to chat about the role. As a 12-year-old, she'd read the book, and basically what was she saying?
I think she was 14 when they filmed, though.
Okay, but still.
So when she met with the director, so they were really impressed with the mother because she wasn't the typical like movie kids mother, star mother. And so she'd read the book, and he asked her if she knew what The Exorcist was about. She told him she read the book. It's about a little girl who gets possessed by the devil and does a whole bunch of bad things. She was then asked what sort of bad things she meant. She pushes a man out her bedroom window, and she hits her mother across the face, and she masturbates with a crucifix. And then they were like, sure, whatever. So but apparently some of the worst scenes, they actually got an older actress that was, like a grown woman to do. Apparently the crucifix scene, the fist fight with Father Karras, and any of the other scenes that they thought were too violent, disturbing for her to be.
That makes more sense.
And that would make sense, really,
Yeah, there you go.
Because I agree. I mean, you watch that and you're like, yeah, this is really distressing. And I mean, you read some of the other horror films that have had young actors in it who are just like made to feel that they're not in a horror film and sort of protected from some of that, whereas this is so
it's so full on, isn't it? Yeah.
All right, well,
good, thank you.
That was The Exorcist. Thanks, team. And we'll move on from kids horror for the next time
to grown-ups horror.
We just kids. Let's do a lot of these for our kids part of that.
It's kind of sad that was like the scariest thing I've ever seen for a time.
Well, no, but like I understand that, like in the 70s when you were like maybe 19. I'm just like more interested in the fact that you can't remember a single thing that scared you as like an actual child.
No, because
I still like to think that you're like, hard as nails. It's not that you.
No, I don't know. You're not exposed in the same way. I mean, we had television, and you had watched all this American pap, really, and you went to the movies if it was your birthday. Like you didn't.
That's true. That you didn't. There wasn't the accent.
I mean, the only thing was Deadly Earnest that I talked about that used to be on Friday nights when I used to stay at my friends, but we probably turned it off when we got scared. So I don't.
Did you say like so Deadly Earnest? He did the little intro. It was kind of
he
like
did an intro, but he was
like
with the Yorick
thing, and he
was a bit scary looking.
Yeah. And then it was just like a B grade horror.
Yeah.
But this was the age of the the Dick Van Dyke shows.
Yeah.
Look, I seriously. I don't think that there's anything shameful about The Exorcist being your scary film, so I think that's all good.
All I'm saying is it's like not quite as good as Mr. Boogedy, but it's still very good.
Thank you.
Although, with the Flight of Dragons, we had the science magic, and now we've got medicine, religion. So covering all round.
I didn't think the songs in The Exorcist were as good as in The Wizard of Oz.
No,
Actually, I was
right.
disappointed when Tubular Bells started and then stopped all the way through the film and disappeared again at the end.
Yeah,
that was very effective use, wasn't it?
Yeah,
but there's something about that. Wasn't Mike Oldfield not happy about it being used? I thought I read something about that.
Oh,
yeah, I think I read something, although not enough to actually. All I know is I read something like that too, but I don't know. Yeah.
Don't ruin my song, mate.
All right.